This is honestly a review that I've been willing to make for a little while, and I've been kind of really been thinking about this for a little bit. I have a confession to make. I am not honestly a big fan of the movie A Silent Voice, or as it's also called, Koe No Katachi. I understand a small concept people like about it, but in all honesty, I think the way the film executes its story is terrible because of a problem where the film is too over the top and its characters act way too over dramatically, and it's because of this that I believe the movie is poorly written. I think while on paper something wasn't necessarily bad, personally I think that, like I understand the concept that the guy was like feeling sorry for what he did necessarily. That's not exactly inherently bad. The way the movie is executed is very bad due to questionable character motivations that don't really make sense, leading to an ending with a huge gap between point A at the beginning and point B at the end, with parts that feel empty in between and parts of the movie feeling shallow. And in reality, the film just writes a character being treated terribly only because of having a disability that she literally has no control over, which I think is really kind of ridiculous, to really be honest with you. I mean, I personally can't see any reason why she's treated poorly for like whatever reason. I want to honestly make a point that while I disagree with the majority of people who have watched this movie and enjoyed it, I have absolutely no problem with someone who likes a silent voice, Koe no Katachi, or as it's also called. I just have a different perspective, and I plan on sharing why I absolutely feel the way that I do, and personally, I think this movie is actually pretty bad. It's actually a pretty terrible movie, to really be honest with you. I know that's a pretty controversial take, but believe me when I tell you, there's definitely some problems with this movie. This review comes from a real lack of criticism on how this movie handles its characters and how the movie doesn't have a real positive message and is really only a disturbing movie only for the sake of shock value without like actual any justification for why it is the way that it is. And its shock value instead of any real subtlety. With that in place, let's get on to the review. A Silent Voice is about a boy named Shoya and him trying to find redemption after abusing and bullying a girl named Shoko and feels depressed over his action in elementary school. That's the core premise of this entire movie. To be honest with you, I don't think it's entirely a bad concept. I think the best concept that the movie has is the fact that the guy feels sorry for what he did, and that's understandable on a surface level, but I feel like these are just only very surface level themes, and they're not actually presented more subtle and any deeper than how it is on the surface. And I do believe, to this movie's credit, this at least had enough potential that this could have been executed a lot better by far better writing, which I do think is true, but that's not an excuse for really how it handles its characters in the movie. Shoya's interaction with Shoko is actually one of the first scenes in the entire film and is really the pilot of the movie's plot. The film opens up around the time Shoko is introduced into a classroom and in the same class as the boy Shoya. She introduces herself as a person who can't really speak well, as especially shown by the scene where she tries singing and can't really sing well due to the disability of her voice, and she also has a deaf problem where she has things in her ears to help hear other people. She shows that way of communicating with other people by writing things, and she carries a notebook and also writes in the classroom's blackboard showing how she communicates instead of talking. Personally, I think that the reason why there's nothing wrong with that just specifically is because, I would expect that that's how a disabled girl would be. I mean, like, I guess. But I feel like that's not really the problem. I feel like all the problems really stem from this particular part. But I feel like it's just kind of really how it's all handled from this park moving forward. A little bit normal, I guess, but I feel like many problems this movie has stem from the scene entirely, but many problems are really shown later on, and the issue isn't from the fact that she has a disability, but the problem is rather how they use her as a plot device around other characters, and the way they interact with her creates nonsense where other characters are literally psychotic fighting her for no reason, and the film blames Shoko for these messes, even though she literally does nothing wrong or selfish in the entire movie. And that's kind of really where all of our problems lie. I feel like it's really where the film articulates the arcs of its characters, and they don't really make sense because they're not really developed well. And the actions of the characters just feel like out of place, and they just don't add together well because the movie is poorly written with its design for its characters. This is really where our problems are. In the moment where Shoya rips a thing out of her ears, shows a vicious scene where they pick on her for no reason. Now, you could honestly make the argument that this moment is treated and directed as a way to show that it was wrong that he did this to her, but the way that they handle his regret for this action, is a little extreme and over the top. After an admittedly uncomfortable moment to watch where he just picks on the girl, not only does he not get detention for it, which is questionable because any kid who does that should definitely get in trouble for what he does. But the way that they handle his regret for this, over the top, where he just not only does not get detention for it, although I will give this movie slight credit for enough common sense for lecturing him, but past that stuff in the future where he's all grown up, almost, and, well, I mean, not quite all grown up, but he's like a later teenager, and like he actually works a job while in high school. Shoya literally has a nightmare about this and looks back on his past at just this one moment in particular and wants to commit suicide for it. See what I'm talking about with being over the top and just like being over extreme with its presentation? It's not bad that he feels sorry for what he did, but wanting to commit suicide over just a single little thing that he just did wrong when he was in elementary school is more extreme than a normal person would act about this moment. And that is true. Like, just wanting to commit suicide, like just because of some stupid thing that you did as a little kid. Like, you couldn't have just moved on from that. Like, I feel like it's just a little bit ridiculous. Like, it's just kind of like, it's a little overly extreme. The question I honestly have is, what would have even driven Shoya about this moment so much that he would even be that depressed in the first place? The reason I state that it's shallow writing is because there's so little to justify why a teenager would feel the urge so much, why suicide is a valid way to just solve his issues, and it's presented in the most vague way possible with no explanation for how he feels. Like, dude, this is stupid. Like, what are you thinking with this? It's just really extreme behavior, and there's really not much to it other than just a simple moment affecting him so much over the years that it's just weird that a single little thing could just ruin your life so much. Like, dude, like, you got problems, man. You gotta, like, see a therapist. Like, dude, like, stop smoking crack. No offense. Hell, if being like that as a little kid can affect you so much that one simple mistake can make you want to commit suicide, then that would literally make offing yourself one of the biggest homicidal threats in the entire world. The problem would literally skyrocket like you wouldn't believe, and it would be catastrophic. Now, one thing that I should definitely mention is that suicide is an extremely serious topic and should never ever be taken lightly. And it's a serious topic to me. It should be serious for anyone, regardless of anything out there. People out should be there and help someone who are depressed on any stage level, and suicide is never okay. Because not only do you hurt yourself, but you literally hurt other people who care about you. And I think that's sad and disgusting. You should never want to ever just hurt yourself or hurt other people. That's an extremely mentally ill thing. The fact that this movie treats suicide like it's an easy solution to solve answers is disgusting, while in reality, it helps nothing and nobody. It only makes matters worse because it's only going to hurt people both physically to yourself and emotionally and mentally to others, because the movie's garbage. There are far more subtle and better ways presenting someone's emotion, feeling sorry for a vicious mistake they made when they were in elementary school. Honestly, it would have been better if he just saw her again and remembered what he did, just so he could try to apologize to her, so it wouldn't be just so over dramatic and overreacted, because only crazy people think of suicide to that level. It's ridiculous. I think the writers were honestly smoking weed when they were kind of thinking about this. Like, no offense, dude. Dude, no one honestly feels that depressed over just a small little mistake that they just made in elementary school. That's kind of ridiculous. And if you are a real person who's thinking about that, then you need to, no offense, people like that need to seek help. Suicide is not a joke, dude. It's a very serious matter and should never be taken lightly. It's a very bad thing. It's scary. I also want to comment on his mom, who literally just burns his money because it's played as being a joke, and he literally, also got it for, I've actually forgot the reason, to be honest with you, because, I just kind of, whatever. Because apparently it's just funny that his own mom burns money and he has to save up, right? Why not just take all the kids' belongings and just burn it all down too while you're at it? I know it's a small thing, but I can't help but think that the mom is a little bit of a dumb nutsack for the fact that she was unaware of burning her own son's money that he got, and how they wouldn't even think that it wouldn't even be a problem, that he wouldn't be able to afford things without a paycheck. So why not just call the bank and issue his money? That just, whatever. It's just such a weird joke to have, and it just doesn't really make any sense. Now, to this movie's credit, I will actually say that Shoya does try to act a little bit, showing that he's sorry to this girl, and at the end of the movie, I think that he even tried saying sorry to her, but because of how bad this movie is, and because how everything in this goddamn movie just hinges off of this one thing that happened in grade school, the story is ruined by characters' motivations not making any sense, and feeling shallow, as they're all built off of having these made-up bullshit things for Shoya, when nothing happened with him other than simply abusing a disabled girl for no reason, and all creating a situation trying to present somehow that she's actually bad for some reason, and it all comes to head with one of the worst characters I've ever seen in a movie, called Uno. I think her name is pronounced. However you pronounce it, you can tell me in the comments down below. Uno is a horrendous character. Her actions against Shoko are literally based off of nonsense, where you can tell that she had a crush on Shoya, by being implied off of her dialogue, where she literally yells at this poor girl that she was, and I quote, selfish, and she literally attacks her while they're in a Ferris wheel. And by the way, that's also literally in public, so it kind of amazes me that no adults were like, what's going on? Shouldn't we like handle this situation at all? Just want to let that sink in a little bit. This asshole literally explains that she misses the past somehow with Shoya because she misses how it once was with him when they literally did absolutely nothing together, because the movie never develops any scenes between them for their relationship. And all we ever were shown was just the guy Shoya bullying her because he was a bratty kid who just picked on her for no reason. What the absolute hell is she talking about? How much weed was she smoking that she seriously just misses his interactions with her that much when the movie literally doesn't even show anything between them together? By the way, it's not even like Shoko and Shoya were, like, why is she even jealous? Like, I don't even really get it. I mean, not that she literally says it, but it's really implied. Like, I don't understand how she thinks that Shoko is being selfish at all. So I guess just being a disabled girl who could barely speak and was just showing that she just draws writing in her notebook is selfish and is wrong behavior when it's literally the only good way that she can communicate with her peers. I guess if you're blind, that just means that you're selfish, and if you need braille language to help take exam tests or needing help dogs to help go somewhere, according to Uno's logic with disabled people. I guess selfish people are selfish too when they can't walk and they ask a horrendous question, like a super evil question that apparently they just need a wheelchair to just help move, I guess. That's selfish. So they just simply move better. So they can just simply move better because needing assistance helping you move is a selfish thing when your legs are broken, or better yet, because there's people out there who are sadly born without missing legs. So apparently that's just selfish. You could just help the fact that you have a disability and, whatever. Uno is literally disgusting how she treats this poor girl, and is, in my point of view, what honestly annihilated this movie for me, because it was at this point the film literally has no direction and entirely shows how atrocious it is at handling the concept of understanding having a disability and how it's nothing to be ashamed of, because the fact that someone would have to be ashamed of having a disability is disgusting. Like, you're not in control of having a disability. And, the fact that this film doesn't understand that is ridiculous. And I think that that's one of the biggest problems with this entire movie. Her feelings about Shoya make no sense on any level to me and don't articulate off anything, because it's literally just a weird moment that happens out of nowhere. And the fact that she just takes out her anger on a poor girl when Shoko did nothing wrong is shitty and lame. It really is. How can you be such a mean, cold bitch that you would ever treat a pretty girl who's disabled like that and have feelings that are literally that shallow? I wish that this was also the end of this nonsense, but it all leads to actually one of the worst moments in the entire movie, building off the moment where Uno assaults Shoko and calls her a greedy bitch. Shoko then herself gets so depressed off this, apparently, and Shoya wonders how she disappeared away from him and wanders off to the top of her home to jump off a high ground to commit suicide herself. So let that sink in for a second and wonder if the writers were smoking weed for a second. Seriously, wonder how no one confronts Shoko that she wasn't selfish at all and did nothing wrong for her to ever deserve doing that to herself. How shallow is your garbage piss movie that it has no regard for her like this? We're just expected to believe that she's selfish and just go with it. Even at the end of the movie, where there's one last conversation between Shoya and Shoko. There's no confrontation that she was never selfish. And the movie expects you to just follow her being like that and just expects you to believe that she was, apparently. Like, yeah, like, she literally did nothing that was selfish at all. Like, all she did was just be a normal girl and just show that she was disabled. Like, she just showed that she was just communicating with other people with her notepad because she couldn't really talk well. Like, what's the big deal with that? How is that selfish? Doesn't make any sense, does it? Because this movie is a piece of shit that can't articulate its characters well. And its arcs for its characters just feel fragmented because of how ridiculous and over the top it gets with just how it writes, every single moment with its characters. It's just ridiculous. I just, I'm like how in the hell is Ueno that much to this one guy who she did literally nothing with in her entire life other than the fact that she just watched this guy just pick on this poor girl. She's just like, oh, apparently, I feel a big crush on this guy for some reason. Dude, this shit is garbage. This movie sucks. So just because some lunatic tells Shoko that she's selfish and is just so effective that she wants to commit suicide, dude, that's pretty extreme. I'm surprised Shoko's own mother wouldn't even take note of this happening, like what she did telling her own kids to stay away from Shoya because he was an abuser towards Shoko when he was a kid, and to just tell Shoko that everything is going to be okay. Like, trying to commit suicide off of just some lunatic's actions towards you, like, that's ridiculous. Like, dude, stand up for yourself a little bit and, everything's gonna be okay, man. Just because, you can't deal with one person just means that, you're gonna commit suicide. Dude, that's a little bit dumb. There's other subtle ways to show someone's depression in dealing with life other than just wanting to commit suicide. Like, that's childish and dumb. Like, dude, see a therapist or, have some nice hobbies that, help you cope with life a little bit. Don't, suicide is not a joke, dude. This movie is horrible. What would her own mom, yeah. Don't you think that's being a little dramatic? How instead Shoko can just write in her notebook and speak up to her mom or someone to just say someone is bullying her again. Like, dude, these guys need to calm down and get some serious help. Moving past all that, let's just finally talk about the ending of this movie. In my opinion, this is actually the worst scene of the movie because the biggest problem with it is how little it actually feels deserved being here at the end, because it has nothing built up to it and the plot just flexed however way it wanted to just get to this part. I have no reason to believe how Shoko was selfish. All she did was just simply be what a normal disabled girl was with a hearing and voice disability, and I found it very disturbing that she apparently was just selfish just because some bitch tried talking her down, confronting her, forcing her to feel that way just because of some nonsense where she holds losing herself all over Shoya for no reason at all. All Shoko's past was literally just being introduced as a student and just being shown that she was disabled. The fact that this is just looked down upon is so dumb that it's mentally retarded and complete nonsense that this was so greedy and selfish. Like, there's nothing greedy and selfish by just showing a notebook that this is just how you communicate with others because you have trouble talking with other people. That's stupid. Whoever thinks that, just being a disabled person is greedy and selfish needs to get their head checked. This movie's terrible. Complete nonsense that this was so greedy and selfish, and the final moments in this movie literally glorify trying to shove in your face how sorry she is when she's never even told once that she's never actually did a single thing wrong in her life, really, because, even though no one's perfect, and I understand that concept, she didn't act, there was never a time where the movie actually shows her being selfish with anything. So it just feels like unbelievable garbage that the film tries to, right at the very end of the movie, oh, she's so sorry. Like, you just have these two characters just crying to each other because, it's bullshit. I like, screw out of here. No offense. This movie sucks. Shoya give this movie credit, does say sorry himself to her at the end, but then really adds to this problem jarring me that he never tells her that she shouldn't even be sorry herself. And Ueno is ridiculous for her actions and never calls her out to her. So that way, because it doesn't make any sense that she would even lash out at her at that, like that to begin with. So it just feels half-assed with weak dialogue, where they just basically just cry to each other in one scene, and then everything is just perfect now. Because why not? We didn't actually build up to this moment. We just, wanted to, shit on your face and say, here you go, asshole. No offense. Yeah, you get what I mean. I'm just like, you know what? Like, dude, like, learn how to actually structure characters and learn how to actually develop your characters. Because a plot shouldn't just flex with, so many different things. A plot needs to have articulation and coherent writing, so that way you can understand what the hell is even going on. But this movie doesn't have a clue what it's doing, and that's one of the biggest problems with it, because the movie has no nuance and subtlety building these characters. It's just showing a bunch of disturbing things just for shock value, and it just expects you to believe that, this girl's selfish and this other guy is apparently a dick to her, I guess. Wow, great. And the other guy is sorry now, and to the point where, okay, let me explain. I just feel like the way how it's just written and handled is very just over dramatic and extreme. Like, this isn't normal behavior of people. Okay? And I feel like one of the biggest problems with the movie as a whole is the fact that there's no believability, like, structuring, like, from point A to point B. Okay? Because, when you're just, like, hinging off of just this one small thing, like, the characters act, like psychopaths. Like, dude, this is just a movie about, like, hurting a girl for no reason. Like, that's really what you're watching at the end of the day. Like, that's what it feels like. It feels like a bunch of just really angry people who are just hurting this girl because they just apparently had a bad day. And there's no justification really for it. And, building to just make her, just try to say that she's just selfish when in reality it just doesn't make any sense. Because, the movie just wants to lightly show that they're just sorry to each other and they just move on. Like, that's really what this movie is presenting. And it has no idea how to actually portray, characters, trying to fix their lives together to just help each other and, to actually, create a real, romance between these two characters, a real love story. Because that's really what this movie ultimately fails at. And it's sad. I think that it's pathetic that they really didn't have direction to really think all these things through, to really articulate their characters. And I know I'm missing I'm probably missing, some things in the movie, but personally, these are just really the points that I really wanted to talk about, because I'm just not a big fan of this movie. And I think it's definitely okay for other people to like it, but I feel like, we have to be open to discussion, and we can't be afraid to discuss these things about these, types of, things and stuff, because I'm giving a different perspective. In my opinion, I feel like the arcs of the characters feel half-assed. There's no real tension. It just feels very dramatic, and it just has, creates all these questionable things and just, disjoints them into the plot. And the film just, fails, writing, writing coherent arcs for the characters. There's no reason why you're supposed to believe that Shoko is selfish. I cannot see that for the life of me. There's no logic behind it. There's no coherent storytelling to articulate about it. And that's one of the biggest problems with this movie. With the added fact that Shoya's whole arc was just him being over the top to show how sorry he is himself, it becomes hard to take this moment seriously when you can obviously see the outcome of this entire movie a mile away from the beginning, and gives you such a ridiculous moment where the characters just argue their attempt at explaining their tragedies they cause, when in reality it's just stemming off of nonsense in elementary school when they were just kids. Like, dude, get over yourself. The movie then just ends with Shoya just standing during the school festival, and then nothing happens after this. And he also just sees Uno being a bitch one last time, finishing off this terrible movie. So, let's talk about the art and the animation real quick. I thought the soundtrack was a little bit forgettable too, so I didn't really, write much about that. But let's talk about the animation though. Next thing I want to mention real quick is talking about the animation and art quality in this movie. I'll admit that the animation quality in this movie is honestly one of the better things in the film. I think the animation has some nice polish to it, making the colors feel vibrant, and is easily one of the few redeeming qualities this movie has. So to give this movie credit at least, I'll at least give it that its animation is at least good, and at least makes the movie somewhat watchable, unlike its terrible story that feels shallow and over the top, with how disturbing it gets portraying its characters and its lack of nuance understanding disabilities. The character designs and art, on the other hand, are not that impressive and not as good as the animation quality, and some characters look weird, like the Steven Universe ripoff, like looking fat kid, who was just written as a small friend with Shoya, and Shoya himself, who looks like a Sasquatch with his disjointed forehead. But that honestly doesn't ruin, though, how beautiful the animation and certain visuals look, like some of the water shots in this movie that look downright gorgeous with detail and color. I will say, though, that it is very weird and annoying. It never presented well why many characters just have X's on their faces for no reason, and I found that extremely annoying, as it had no meaningful purpose in the entire movie, and what it was trying to present. I couldn't stand that direction with the art. Yeah, some of the art direction in this movie was terrible. I feel like, when you're having like X's on the faces for no reason, and there's not like an explanation, like some sort of like, meaningful depth behind it, it's like, what are you doing? Like, are you just making a mess in your movie? So, in conclusion, this is going to be my conclusion part of the video. Overall, this is a terrible movie. It's a film that's poorly structured off of one moment that was just random shock value that makes you feel like the kid is really an asshole for treating this one girl like trash for no reason, and it becomes this over-dramatic quest of being sorry about themselves, but writes itself so poorly that they apologize because their character arcs are handled in such a non-subtle, non-articulated way where they just flex however way they want. The arcs just flex however way they want, and they feel rushed where nothing is built and adds together well because the movie is a poorly designed joke where everything is overreacted and over-exaggerated to a point where it's hard to take seriously. And that's one of the biggest problems with the movie, is the fact that it's so over-dramatic that it doesn't feel, like it's logical and reasonable. And it just, like literally bursts to an extreme level. And it's hard to take this seriously, the struggles of the characters, when in reality, these are just small things that people can grow up from. These are just small. This is just a small thing that the characters just can't move past for some reason. There's no reason why the characters dwell so much in the past. It's just showing a scene where a girl is hurt by a guy for no reason, when it's so exaggerated to the point where suicide is just an easy way to just deal with that mistake that happened, when all that needed to happen was giving the kid detention, and that was the end of it. Really be honest with you, the fact that this movie just treats suicide so lightly is disturbing and disgusting to me. No one should ever treat suicide like it's a small thing, because that's a very big problem. Suicide is very serious, and no one should ever take it lightly. It's a very scary, it's a very dark, and it's a very bad thing to deal with. One arc is, and this is Shoko's arc, it is her trying to, they're trying to say that she's selfish, when in reality she's just an abused girl lying that she's selfish, and other characters are lying to her that she's selfish, and there's no believability behind that. And the other character arc, which is Shoya's arc, is just, feeling sorry off of a poor choice, made only once in grade school, and just wants to off himself for it. And then the film just does a poor job, creating a redemption arc for his character, because it's too over dramatic to take seriously. It's a weak film that has no idea how to build its characters, creates retarded motivations for flexing the plot unnecessarily. It has no nuance or real intelligent commentary on disabled people or suicide, and just uses harsh reaction as shock value instead of normal reactions with other people, because the movie is not intelligent enough understanding these concepts. It is a poorly written mess that's disturbing only for shock value instead of real storytelling. If you honestly think about it, the whole movie could be summed up as a film just about a disabled girl being bullied for no reason. That's why my final rating for A Silent Voice is honestly a 1.5 out of 10. I don't think that it's lower than that. I think it's between a 1 and a 2. That's kind of where I'm going with this, because I feel like I understand the concept that they're trying to make the guy feels sorry for what he did to her, but it's just executed poorly because of how over dramatic and hard to take seriously it is. And I feel like there's a bit of redeeming qualities with the animation quality, but other than that, there's not really much that could really be redeemed in this movie. The fact that this movie has so little regard for what it's really doing with its characters is the reason why I give it that low of a score. So I wouldn't give it a 0, but it definitely has a lot of problems. And I feel like, this movie sucks. I think, yeah. I mean, and by DX Fan 619's rating system, this would be a rest and piss. I do believe that. It's a trash film with no idea how to coherently present and focus its characters without totally going off the wall, because it's not smart enough to articulate being subtle with real chemistry between characters, understanding ideas on any strong level. And Uno is a prime example showing how the writing is so weak that she just has no justification for her feelings on any level. Oh, man. But you know what, though? Despite everything that I had to say about this movie, really, in all honesty, like I always say and always will say until the day I die, people have the right to feel however way they want to about what they like and what they don't like. If you're someone who likes this movie, then I feel great for you. You found something that you enjoy, and I'm glad that you like the movie. I personally am not a fan of it, and I've explained a ton of reasons why I feel the way that I do. This movie has a lot of problems, and I feel like it's very bad at, writing, the ideas that it has. It has no idea how to, understand its concepts. But let me know what you think of the movie, what you think of A Silent Voice, or as it's also called, Koe No Katachi. Do you agree with me and think it's garbage like I do, really? I mean, just a bad movie that was just executed poorly, had maybe a bit of potential, but was just, bad? Or do you just disagree with me and like it? You know what? I have a lot of fun discussing things with other people. This is just my opinion. Even though I feel like this is just how I objectively feel about it, no one's the be all end all with how they feel. And I just think that it's just a lot of fun being on any platform on the internet or with any, person, talking face to face in the real world, just discussing my opinions, because I love being a critic, and this is just something that I'm very passionate about. I love discussing my thoughts with other people. Stay tuned for more awesome reviews, and I hope you have an excellent day. Thanks for watching, my video. And if you want to, please leave a like, and, maybe even subscribe to the channel if you feel like it. I feel like it helps me out, and it'll help me produce more content in the future, because I love doing this for other people and myself. Thank you, and have a great day.